Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited. We've had some awesome people in the studio today recording. Right now, I have Doris here.
Hello.
Hi, Doris. How are you?
Great.
We're drinking some wine, some sparkling water, and we are going to talk everything. I'm fascinated with you. I've been fascinated with you since I met Talon, your husband, and I specifically remember we were in my yard. He had just done the fencing at my house, and he started telling me about you. And I'm like, does she have like social media? He's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Can you pull it up? And then since then, I'm like, this is wild. Like, she needs a reality show. Like, this isn't. And I was raised doing the things that you're doing. Like, that is how everyone lives back home. But it's like, I don't know. After 20 years of being away, people get more and more disconnected from their food source. You know, I feel like we just live in such a busy world where we're just disconnected from everything. We have no idea how we're processing anything from the head all the way down to our feet. And so more so than you creating some fun stuff to watch on social media, like the content that you put out is so fascinating, but it's real. I mean, and it's important stuff that you talk about and cover up there. And so I do want to dig into some of that, but just give us a little background on who you are and what you do.
Well, very interesting story, just as we were discussing with one of your friends. I grew up in the Bay Area and was a total city girl. I wasn't really interested in camping or anything outdoors unless it involved the pool or going on a boat. And my family owned the largest beer distributorship in San Francisco, and I grew up working there. I was supposed to take over one day, but then a crazy offer came in, and my dad's two brothers decided to sell when I was 25 years old. So he didn't have enough money to buy them out. The company was sold, and I had to do something else with my life. I moved to Los Angeles just to kind of have fun, and I was working in the finance industry. I was working for a mortgage lender right before the subprime market collapsed. So a year in down there, all of a sudden, no more 100% financing. The next day, 90, 95, 90. It was just crazy to see that go down. Yeah. But also while living in LA, I was going to farmers markets, and my roommate was really into herbs. And it's weird how this one story where we went out one night, drank. The next day, I was feeling hungover, feeling a little nauseous, and she suggested I drink some ginger tea. And she's like, it'll help with your nausea. And I kind of knew a little bit about herbs, but then I drank the tea and felt better. And I was like, wow, just this plant, it's natural. And I've never really been into luckily I don't have headaches, don't really have any chronic anything. So I've just never really had to take pills like Tylenol or anything. So I started learning about herbs after that, and started learning about what organic meant, and started going to this one website called naturalnews.com. It's actually still out now. This guy, Mike Adams, started it. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in his 30s. And it was then, and what he says is he was on the standard American diet, the SAD diet, which my husband was on. I mean, a lot of people, if they don't think about where their food comes from or the preservatives or all the things that the FDA may deem as safe, and once you follow the money and look at some of these ingredients that are banned in other countries, it makes you think like why are they legal here? But anyway, so I started learning about, so Mike Adams would post everything he was discovering. Wow, this ingredient is legal here, but guess what? This is how it's made, and this is what it does to your body. And he was also interviewing innovative alternative health gurus who had interesting new products or different health modalities for whatever it was, healing cancer or whatnot. And there was this one person he interviewed, which had a company that was selling sea minerals for agriculture. And it was in that article, that interview, that I learned that we're deficient because our soils are deficient, and we've over-farmed all the elements out of our soil. And after World War II, a lot of the big corporations who were producing the munitions for war, what were they going to do with the ammonium nitrate or the gases that were used in the chambers in Germany? Well, they found out that the ammonium nitrate can also be used for fertilizer. the same stuff that was used for making bombs. And the gases that were used in chambers and things like that were actually great pesticides. So all these huge corporations who were in the war business were now fueling the agriculture business in the US. And they started funding all the universities and making the universities teach this new form of agriculture, which they referred to the NPK methodology. And that stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And farmers just really started putting and focusing on those 3 macronutrients. And that doesn't mean other things weren't used. And farmers, there's a bunch of different farmers out there doing different things. But when you think about how fertile our soils were here before we started mass producing and monocropping means putting the same crop, such as corn, in the same area year after year. And that corn plant will pull the same type of elements because corn needs a certain set, just keep pulling year after year. And that's when they started learning about crop rotation. So anyway, all these things together, and I started learning also about how the correlation of degenerative disease correlates very closely with the increase of conventional agriculture. So it was learning these things that really changed my life and got me really interested in farming. And when I found that one product and learned about sea minerals in the ocean having all 90 natural elements known to man are in the ocean, and farmers that use things from the ocean like sea kelp, fish emulsion are already giving more nutrients than they possibly could from other sources. And then if you use a clean diluted concentrate of actual sea water, that you're giving the full buffet of elements to plants. So this is how I kind of put this. Every enzyme needs an element to catalyze it. People even think, if you think about arsenic, you think it's poisonous. But in the elemental form, at such a trace level, it's actually needed to catalyze some certain enzyme function, whether it be in a plant or a human. And so when you use something like the clean diluted seawater, you're offering the plants the full buffet of the toolbox of what it needs to reach its genetic potential. So in essence, you have a tomato plant that could be as red as it's genetically meant to be, smell as great as it's supposed to smell, taste as great as it's supposed to taste, and then give you all the nutrition that tomato possibly could. Have you ever gone to the store and tried a tomato sometimes and it's mealy or it's like devoid of color and smell? Yeah. When I go to the store, I pick my fruits and vegetables by smelling them. So people might be irritated. I'm picking up stuff, touching everything, smelling, but I could smell if the nutrients are in there. So anyway, this is the backstory of learning about this product, and I just got motivated to want to start my own fertilizer company. And I contacted this company in Florida. They had no West Coast distribution. And I said, I'll fly out there, and I don't know a thing about farming, but I can teach myself anything. I was marketing and accounting major in college at USF. And I told him that I'm very familiar with the 3-tier business model from the beer distribution, brewery, distributor, and final retail. And I said, I can sell this for California. So in 2008, I flew out there with the tape recorder and spent a week and recorded the whole week, came back and transcribed it, and taught myself agriculture.
Wow.
And then started the fertilizer business. Officially moved home to the Bay Area in February of 2009. And my father was reluctant at first because he said, you're crazy. No one's going to buy fertilizer from you, and I'm not funding this. And he saw that I was serious and started my own LLC. And I came home from Christmas in 2008. So he said, how about this? Your mother wants you home, having a Korean mom. She's like, wants me to live at home till I'm married. She was pissed I moved to LA, and I was only supposed to go for 3 years, and I was on 4. So he said, you move home, take care of the estate. They had a fairly large residence at Woodside, and my parents were older. He's like, take care of the estate, and I will fund your business. And so that's what got me into agriculture. And what got me up here is my mother is Korean, as I mentioned. And I'm not sure if you know this, but a lot of Koreans are quote unquote born again. And the born again Christians are kind of the craziest when it comes to the Christians, just really hardcore. And I feel like people that turn to God later in life, like my mom, maybe she felt lost or didn't really have any meaning to life, because, I think we all have a purpose, a soul's purpose, and many people never actually realize what that soul's purpose is. And my mom, when I was about 4 or 5, discovered her purpose was to spread the word of God and to help people in any way she could.
Wow.
And so she had bought this property in the first property up there. There's 3 parcels in 92.
Like, how'd she find that from the Bay Area?
So my dad, and this is what's funny about my parents, my dad was a big time drinker, but only on the weekends. He was a controlled alcoholic, Friday through Sunday. And he was a big time gambler. And so he loved going to Reno. My mom hated to fly. My dad would fly. And as I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention, my dad had some money. So he would fly from San Francisco.
How funny.
And my mom would drive my brother and I. And we would go 2-3 times a year. Well, this one time we were driving through the 80, she saw a sign, I think it was Mother Lode Realty, and it said property for sale. So the first property she bought, I think in 91, was 40 or 50 acres off of Bowman Lake Road in Nevada County. And the reason why she bought that property, it was on a hilltop, and there's a Vista Point exit off the 80 when you're heading up past the last exit in Colfax. You can pull over. It's on the opposite side when you're headed up. And if you get out in that exit and look around, you can see the top of this one hill that's on the property. Well, she had a 30-foot cross constructed. Like, she would do crazy things like this because she wanted, and painted it white, because she wanted people from the freeway to be able to see this cross.
Wow.
And at the base of it, she had engraved and almost like headstone material, like granite, all these different sayings and different things that God had spoken to her. Like,
wow.
One of them was, I move mountains, ask me. And I can't remember the other ones. So anyway, that's her first property. Then I guess the realtor mentioned, hey, there's some property up in Iowa Hill. And imagine my little Korean mom, 5'2", in her little Mercedes. Wait till you come up to the ranch and see the road. You're going to die.
I see the road just in what you post, and it looks wild.
It's one lane. It hugs a cliff. Of course, there's areas where there's turnouts for cars to pass. And once you pass the American River, you're climbing up over 1,500 feet, literally like scaling and seeing the river below.
It's crazy.
So anyway, she bought the first property up there, 92, which was 80 acres, and then met someone else who owned the ranch I'm on now, which was a couple miles away. And this property is really the premier property up there because I'm at the very top of the mountain. The previous 2 owners ago had put in this walnut orchard. They clear cut about 30 acres of pine trees, put in a walnut orchard in the 50s and 60s.
Wow.
And they acclimated the trees to survive off rainfall. So what you do is you water them the first 5 years and then slowly peter off. And so it's a non-irrigated orchard. And my mom did like a secret deal with this guy and said, okay, I'll make payments. My mom would secretly buy property behind my back. My dad's back.
Your dad's. Wow.
Because he told her no more properties, but she got allowance every month. So she would try to, and then she got the property and then I think illegally logged it. And, when people hear logging, they think, oh my God, cutting all. No, our forests are way too congested right now.
Right.
And it's conscious logging. But she logged it and I think got the money for it and was able to pretty much pay it off. So
wow.
She bought that property and her hopes were to make it a Christian retreat center, but being 3 hours from the Bay Area and off grid and crazy, it just never came to fruition for her. And she ended up buying another property that was turnkey in Oakdale that already had a church and a house, that was her new retreat center. And that was only like an hour and a half from our home. So it just sat, and we had a caretaker, a CAL FIRE caretaker named Thor.
Wow.
It's funny because my husband's middle name is Thor. You don't hear that name often.
No.
And that guy lived on the property for 12 years. And it just sat. And I went probably once, I think when I was maybe twice, once at 16, once at 19 years old, but had no desire ever to go back. And once I got into agriculture and started my fertilizer business, my mom kept saying, Dori, that's what she called me, the walnut trees, we have the land. And I'm like, Mom, I'm selling to farmers in Fresno, I can't go farm right now. But I knew when I would go to these farm trade shows and conferences, and I'd set up my booth, and I'd be the bougie girl with the hunter boots, just kind of getting into ag, so I don't have all the real gear yet. But meeting all the farmers and just talking to them and getting their stories, like, what do you farm? And, you know, lots of farmers were like, what do you farm? And how many acres have you done? And they really wanted to buy from another farmer. And I didn't have that under my belt. I mean, we had like, I would say like, oh, we have 20 trees in Woodside, fruit trees. And then also being in those farm shows, I realized that I want to be a farmer. I want to marry a farmer. I want to be a farmer. And the only way for me to know what is in the food that I grow or that I eat is if I grow and raise it myself.
Yeah.
So about a year and a half in of the fertilizer business, my mom has a massive stroke and she was paralyzed on one side. The side of the brain that was affected controlled speech, so she couldn't speak. And her being such a big Christian, my family, we made an executive decision together. We said, hey, if she was here and we were giving her the choice, she would say, God creates miracles, take the chance. My father, on the other hand, after he saw what happened to her, changed his advance directive, and he was like, you pull the plug if that happens to me. So for 2 years, I had her care. My dad like fell apart right after that and crashed his brand new Jaguar convertible. And I was like, you need to go to rehab. Sent him the passages in Malibu, like, you go. And then he ended up going to court and signing over her life to me to be her conservator or person, because like he just, they were still married, but like my parents put me in charge at a young age. My mom being Korean, she would ask me to call, can you call the bank and tell them this, because her accent was so strong. So at a really young age, I was her, her ambassador. I would learn how to speak to people and ask things for her. And my dad being drunk on the weekends, he'd be like, you order for the table. I have 5 siblings. My mom had 4 from a previous marriage, and then my brother and I from my dad. So it was just not even a question when I was like, my older sisters are 20 years older than me. They have children and families, and they really wanted her to stay in these acute facilities after like a few months. And just seeing the care when I would go there, she'd be in the wheelchair and she'd have her head over and she'd be drooling, and I'm reading the chart like, wait, she's supposed to be out of this wheelchair like an hour ago. And then a bed sore was starting, and I'm like, that's it, we're bringing her home. And luckily I had a cousin who was a hospice nurse, and she was like, okay, this is what you need to order. All the DME, durable medical equipment, like these are your charts. You need to find 24-hour nurses. And I learned everything, because she had a tracheostomy and a feeding tube, which makes it more difficult. You have to learn suctioning and changing the inner cannula. And it's like kind of like scary for people.
Yeah.
And it was scary
like
for
nursing.
Yeah. But I was like, she brought me into this world, and I love her, and there's no way I'm letting her go out like that.
Yeah.
So I took her home, and I had her care for 2 years, and we tried everything. And, after 2 years, it was, we tried everything. And the doctors actually had said at the end of 2 years, or through the process, I totally weaned her off all the tube feeding formulas.
Wow.
By the way, tube feeding formulas are the worst ingredients on the face of this earth.
I can imagine.
And they're fed to the patients that need the best nutrition. So, she was a type 2 diabetic. So I totally did all her own diet, met with a dietitian, did different protein powders, bolus, through her tube. Every single alternative, like, supplement you could give. And the at-home doctors said, like, wow, she is so healthy. Every single internal organ and everything. It's just her brain that wasn't able to recover. She had a stage 4 bed sore that she came home with, and there was like the first nurse we had, someone from home health came and prescribed the wrong bandage, and it was literally her first week home, and having that wrong bandage on for 2 days, I think it was stage 3 at first, caused the infection to go crazy, and it ate down to the bone. So imagine her first 2 weeks home, rushing her to the hospital, and finding out with an ambulance, right? Finding out that she now has osteomyelitis and has a bone infection. And there was a hole on her coccyx, which is her butt bone. You can see her butt bone. And the doctors at Stanford said, she'll probably never heal from this, just letting you know, but we'll, nope, with my care and with, we ended up totally healing, curing the osteomyelitis, and that whole wound ended up healing and growing back out. And I truly believe it's from the proper nutrition.
Yeah.
So, I'm going over all this because this all has to do with like food. How is the food grown? Where is it coming from? And then so it was her dream when I got into agriculture to revive the walnut orchard on the ranch. It had been fallow for like 12 years. Only the bears were pruning it. And so as soon as she passed, I actually whispered in her ear about a month before she died. And I said, Mom, we tried everything and it's time to let go. And then she got pneumonia for the third time. The first 2 times she got it, she's going on hospice. I cured her from it. The doctors were just like blown away. But the third time she got pneumonia and she passed. And from that moment on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put the fertilizer business on hold. I'm going to move the ranch. I'm going to learn how to farm because I want to get back into fertilizer, but I got to farm first.
Yeah.
And in 2013, I moved to the ranch and started farming.
So this ranch, is it off the grid? Is there electricity up there?
Oh, completely off the grid. I make my own electricity with solar.
Okay.
Also, I use a generator depending on what I need. And then I have propane appliances, such as a stove. I used to use a propane fridge. And for my water heater. Okay. So it's a mix of things. But yeah, there's no option to have grid power there.
Wow. And so what's your water source?
Luckily, where this one location is, it's a great well. So when you dig a well, no one knows what kind of water they're going to get. Where is this water coming from? Luckily, we're in the mountains, so we know there's no pesticides from local farms. But the property that's a couple miles down the road, that one has a lot of iron in it. The dirt up there is very red, so it's a lot of iron. That one, when you pour the water out, that well is also deeper. It's 300 feet. That water is like red, has red sediment in it. The well at the ranch is only 180 feet deep. And I tested the parts per million, the total dissolved solids, only 25 parts per million, which is close to pure.
Wow.
Like city municipal restrictions, I think the max they can have is 500 parts per million. But parts per million of what?
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals or, and so being from the Bay Area, we used to get our water from Hetch Hetchy, I'm not sure anymore, but on the peninsula, our water was like 21 parts per million, which is almost pure, and that's the water at the ranch. So I'm lucky to
that's
have,
amazing.
Yeah, amazing water up there.
So when it's nighttime up there, it's dark, right? It's not like coming down into a city.
No.
I don't think people understand how dark is when you're not lit up by city lights and
you can see the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe I haven't been up there yet. One of the reasons I was so just in awe of you is because I had said, where I came from, it's all ranchers and farmers. They do live off the land. Like you said, our source of food, we were just home recently. My husband's from the Bay. And so we went home and we happened to be at one of my friends that ranch, and it's generational ranching. And they'd come in for lunch like they do every day. And there's 3 sons, whatever ranch they're on that day, the wife is preparing lunch for all of them. And so it's always meat from the ranch. It's always vegetables from the garden and potatoes. It's so basic, but so good. Tastes so good. But I started to realize that I felt full and I wasn't eating much. And it was just kind of like me reconnecting with how I'd been raised, where like you can sit and eat twice as much food that has empty nutrients in it, and you're not getting full. And that was probably like 8 years ago, where when you're younger, you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. These people are so closed-minded. I'm never coming back here. And then something happens where you're like, I can't wait to get back to that, or I want my son to have that, which is how we landed in Loomis. Because for me, it was like the closest thing where I could still work, raise him in a smaller community, and not have him feel like the big city life, to give him something that was mine. And so all that to be said, when I had seen what you were doing, I'm like, oh my God, like that lifestyle, I'd kind of forgotten about it, to be honest with you. Like, it's almost embarrassing that you can leave and get so caught up in surviving, making money, having your family, raising your kids, running your businesses, that I'm probably like the norm. You forget, like, no wonder I'm dealing with inflammation, or I'm on this up and down roller coaster. I don't even know what's going in my body. And I'm cleaner than anyone that I hang out with. So it's like, you start to look at things and you realize, I put so much in my body every day that's not good for me.
Well, one thing I've noticed about a lot of people in the fitness industry, they are quote unquote healthier, right? They eat the vegetables. And for me, coming from now a farmer background, the past 10 years, and learning about how things were grown, I think the missing link is, or the next step that needs to be taken for someone who eats the right type of food, is to really look at the source of that food. I've been to the farms. I've seen what they spray. And here's what's interesting. So, okay, there's two things you got to look at for farming, right? Nutritional content, and toxicities. So they're two separate things. So ironically, there can be a conventional farmer that maybe he does use kelp. He uses, maybe he does use kelp and some fish emulsion along with his other synthetically derived NPK. And then you have a farmer next door that's certified organic. And with certified organic, you know what's not in there. You know the toxins are not in there for the pesticides and fungicides. But you could have a certified organic farmer that's only using chicken poop. And chicken poop might only have, let's say, high concentrates of NPK. If his soils are depleted, which they probably are, and he's not using a wide variety of different amendments, you can actually have the organic guy with an inferior nutritional tomato than the conventional guy next door. So the conventional guy might have a nutritional powerhouse, but then the thing fighting against that is if he's using a fungicide and pesticide, then also that's added toxicity. So it gets confusing, and it really, at the end of the day, what I promote people to do and I encourage, and I know it's hard for people, but if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, I have friends who live in apartment buildings. If you have a deck, you can grow a couple potted plants. It's going to be hard for people to grow all their own food, but maybe culinary herbs. And I think a lot of people who don't cook, that's maybe a place to start. Try to cook a little more, because when you don't cook and you have all these packaged goods and things that are preserved or having to constantly go out and eat and buy food at other places, you have zero control over your food.
Yeah, which is the American diet, is that. I mean, I think now more than ever, when I have conversations with women, I'd say the majority of them don't cook at all anymore. It's always, DoorDash in this area. And I'm not talking about the mom that's working a job. I'm talking about the mom that just moms.
Wow.
And maybe has a couple kids and they're in sports and everything's more self-centered, and it's just inconvenient or not something they want to do. They're not looking at it from the nutritional side at all, right? Door dashing and all of that, they don't care. They think getting a salad from wherever is good, and they eat that 6 days a week and call it good. But the other thing that I notice, especially being in the fitness industry, is that people just don't eat enough. In general, like their protein levels are extremely low. I cannot tell you how many times, especially with a newer client, where it's like, I don't want to get too much muscle. And I'm like, do you know how much you would have to lift and eat in order to get too much muscle, especially as women, because we'd be losing that muscle year after year. And so it's just, there's so much information that's not right, that's used for marketing campaigns from these food industries that mislead people into making decisions where they just stop doing it all.
Well, also I noticed on social media, there's all these fad diets, like the carnivore diet. Well, I don't want to say that's a fad diet, the carnivore diet, or there's this one guy who says, these vegetables, you shouldn't be eating them. They're bad for you and they cause this and that. And what I recommend is all our bodies are different. We all come from different ethnic origins, and we metabolize things differently, and we soak up the sun rays differently depending on where we're from and our blood. And so people have to experiment and do what's right for them, and not just take what they see somewhere like, ooh, this diet's going to work. It's going to be trial and error. And at the end of the day, though, it does the most important thing. Okay, so for me, when I first went down the rabbit hole in around 2008 or 9 and learned about all the crap in everything, I was strict. I go to a friend's house and they'd offer me dinner. I'm like, oh, is that genetically modified? Sorry, you can't eat that, you know? And then to live a life like that, or if I commented to people, it almost was like I was not putting them down, but just the way I would make people feel by telling them, oh, that's poison, you know, or, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And then after a few years, I realized, hey, you got to live a little. I run the 80-20 rule now, where when I'm on the mountain and I'm there most of the time, I can't DoorDash. I'm an hour from town in the middle of nowhere off a 2-mile dirt road. I can't just order something. And I have to make everything myself. And so anything I buy for my home that I'm going to cook, I try to have it as pure as possible. Of course, if it's in season, if I can grow it, I'm growing it. Mm-hmm. If it's out of season, it's a vegetable or an exotic fruit that I can't grow, then I have to buy it. Meat, I actually just eat all the meat that I raise. The only time I eat meat that I don't raise is when I go out to eat, because I do pork, lamb, and chicken. Okay. So I can have that myself. But I love going out to dinner. I love being able to not have to cook. Mm-hmm. And I do know, even when I go to a fancy restaurant, that may not be organic. Sometimes they find local. And so I just kind of let myself enjoy things. So when I'm in town, I'll go out to eat and I'll enjoy that. And I won't be too crazy with it, because you can't control everything. Yeah. But we are being bombarded with toxins from so many directions. There's geoengineering, I forgot the chemicals, aluminum and silver iodide, I think it is, that they're spraying into our atmosphere to control the weather. Not a conspiracy theory. It's been funded by Congress. Many countries around the world are doing this weather manipulation. So we're getting stuff from our air. When you're in the cities around here, they have to put chlorine in the water to sanitize it, and most counties put fluoride in the water. And when you think about fluoride, not even to debate whether it's good for you or not, but if it is good for you, just like vitamin B would be, or vitamin C, I don't need someone else to be dosing my water with what's good for me. Let me dose it myself. Yeah. And when you look at the fluoride industry, it's actually a byproduct of the phosphate mining industry for fertilizer. It's a byproduct that they used to have to pay to dispose of because it was so toxic. And it's not even the atomic form of fluoride. It's like this long chemical name that's hard to pronounce, and now they're making money and having municipalities buy it off them and putting it in the water. Like you're gonna have to go down the fluoride rabbit hole. So anyway, that's another thing. We're being bombarded from our water, and then the food, and then look at all the plastics and the BPAs and the forever chemicals and our clothing. I mean, so I'm trying to get pregnant right now. I'm older. I'm 42. I'm turning 43 in October. My husband's 31. And I've never been pregnant before, never had an abortion. I was on birth control until I was 30 years old, right around the time when I started learning everything. And I said, whoa, wow, birth control is really bad for you. And I was on it for 15 years, since I was 15. And so since then, I learned about when women ovulate, and I was pretty regular. And so I was able to do my own birth control with monitoring my ovulation. And so I got married in 2021, and we kind of just, I figured, okay, if I get pregnant, I get pregnant. We definitely want to have kids, but I wasn't really trying. And then the past year, I kind of started, I guess, trying more, where I'm seeing when I ovulate and then doing it around then. Yeah. And then not getting pregnant. And of course, we're thinking, oh my God, is it me? It's because I'm older. Well, I got this really good book, and I've been studying and learning more about infertility and how it's on the rise for not only women, but men. The sperm rate has decreased. It's gone 70% down. Wow. And so the World Health Organization says that the average sperm count, let's see, hold on. So I had my husband get tested first. I said, hey, I have a feeling it might be you. Because when I met him, he was Mr. drinking Folgers coffee. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know that how many chemicals are in Folgers? He's like, it was funny. Whatever ad they had on commercials, he said the ad, to me. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And, he had a whole bowl of Snickers and all this stuff in his kitchen. And, I was like, okay, typical standard American diet. I'm going to change this guy too. I change every guy I'm with. So anyway, he adapts to me. But when I'm at the ranch 3 days a week, we live kind of separately. We're together 4 days a week, and 3 days I'm at the ranch because I wasn't going to give up my ranching life and all my animals.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to give up his welding business. So the days we're not together, I find receipts. He's going to McDonald's sometimes or Taco Bell, sneaking it and drinking sodas. And I'm like, okay. So then in January, I actually said, you know what? I think it might be you. So I took my own sperm sample from him, and I have a microscope that I used to use for compost analysis. And I could take a video of it on a little chip, and I compared the movement of the sperm to what videos online were supposed to be for healthy sperm. And I showed him, and I said, look, I think it's you because your sperm are swimming in tight circles. And he was like, whoa, okay, you know what? I'll go get tested. We went and got him tested. And he said, okay, so the way they test sperm is they give you a range. And if you're in range, you're fine. And I think it was, God, I can't remember all the figures now. I think he had 40, they say if you have 40 million sperm per milliliter, and I might be quoting this wrong. The World Health Organization says that you're healthy or that you can have children. But this book I'm reading called Countdown, it's great because it goes into all the infertility for men, for women. It talks about all the forever chemicals that the woman ingests during gestation period and how different times of creating the baby, if you're exposed to these different chemicals, it actually alters the mind of the child to make men feel more feminine and make, different sexes feel that they're the opposite. I'm only halfway through the book and it's crazy.
Wow.
And so anyway, he was in range on everything to these World Health Organization standards except progressive. And have you ever had a sperm test?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Progressive is the movement of their swimming, and he was 8% below the range. And that was exactly what I saw that was weird. If the sperm are not swimming straight or enough, and they're swimming in tight circles, how are they going to get to that egg?
Wow.
And with women, and here's another thing I'm going to try. I haven't tried it yet. A friend called me and said, hey, I've been trying to get pregnant for a year, and it didn't happen. She wants a second child. She said, a friend of mine's been trying to get pregnant for 2 years, and it didn't happen until. Have you heard of Mucinex?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mucinex, when you take it, it loosens your mucus here in your lungs. Well, if you take one Mucinex per day for 3 days leading up to ovulation, it thins out your cervical mucus, because the cervical mucus, when you ovulate, is so thick.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard for sperm to swim up there, even if you have straight swimmers. So my friend said, I did this in the first month I got pregnant. My friend did it the first month she got pregnant. Try this. So I have the Mucinex. I'm going to try it next month.
Wow.
But anyway, this goes back to my husband. And then I started looking at the boxers, all his boxers, if they're not organic or just cotton, they don't have to be organic, but just the polyester, different things, that's affecting the scrotum and the sperm. And then, of course, hot tubs and whatnot. And then just his whole diet of just...
Yeah. Does he take the diet more serious now that you guys are talking about trying to have a baby and it's not happening?
Yes.
That
Finally.
he has a leading role in this?
Yes. Finally, he is taking it more seriously. Yeah.
Right. So did you ever go in and did you get tested?
I didn't. I want to try the Mucinex first.
Yeah.
Because I know how invasive from friends, how invasive it is for me to get tested. I did have my hormones tested. I had them tested last year, and there was a baseline in 2017. I had them tested, and they're all the same.
Who did you go to?
There's a internal, I think it's called, what is it called? Not internal medicine. Functional health doctor. Her name is Heather Jacobson, and she's in Grass Valley or Nevada City. She's a chiropractor.
Okay.
Usually the functional medicine doctors are chiropractors. And I went to her.
Wow.
And so she did a full blood panel, looks at my hormone, and looks at all my vitamins and things like that too. And then she tested all the hormones, and they tested good last year too. And then I also just bought the Ava bracelet. Have you heard of that?
No.
I wear it every night, and it tracks my resting heart rate or resting breathing rate. It tests all these parameters because during the cycle of a woman's month, your temperature changes. And so some people don't ovulate regularly or on the 14th day. So I am pretty regular. My period comes about every, 26 to 28 days. Sometimes if I'm stressed out, I've noticed it'll come 5 days early. And so for me, I wanted to see, am I ovulating when I think I'm supposed to? So this bracelet, and I just got it a few months ago, you have to wear it for a couple months to kind of get a good analysis. It tells you when you're ovulating because your temperature changes and your breathing rate and all these things change when you sleep at night just throughout our cycle through the month.
That is so interesting. One thing that I've read and heard a lot of and actually went through, so my mom died of breast cancer, and the doctor had told me, there's 3 or 4 things that you can do to help you not have to repeat history here. And I was 27 when she passed. It was not to be a big drinker, not to drink, not to smoke, manage my stress levels, and not to have babies when I'm older. Okay, so I got married later as well. I mean, it was, my 30s, right? And then had a baby, I don't know, 35, 36 maybe. And hormonally, it was a lot for me, the postpartum. I struggled with both my kids postpartum. For whatever reason, it was really hard for me. And the doctor had told me, no more kids for you. If you want to make sure that you keep your health good and that you're not having to deal or, increase your chances for breast cancer. And I remember feeling so defeated. This is it with my husband. We get one child. I definitely don't want to bring a child into the world and think well, you had this information and you're putting the chances of you not being here to raise this child, and just wild where your mind will go. And so I had come home and shared with Brandon, you need to go get it fixed because I don't want to take the chances. But now it's so interesting because so many people in their 40s are having babies, and I feel like, I
jumped the gun.
Yeah.
Well, he could always have it reversed.
He could, but I went to the Bay Area. I met with a doctor that was a mentor to learn about hormones, and actually did a class and got certified under her. And she had a baby in her 50s, and she's like, none of that.
God.
That is not real. If your body is still able to have a baby, your body can still produce a baby. Our bodies are fascinating. And I just didn't think, I'm leaning on the health professionals to kind of guide me in that, because the fear for me, anything health-wise, would be to die of cancer. Watching somebody die like that was awful. And so I've taken it to heart. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. I try to maintain the areas of my life that I am able to make those choices. I feel like it's just me being responsible to my children and my family to do those things because somebody that is leading in that field has done it. And I go to UC Davis for everything. I try to make sure that I'm surrounding myself with good experts. But I can definitely tell you that one of my quiet struggles has been around, did I do something and take wrong information? You know how much my son tells me now he wants a younger sibling? Can we adopt?
Too late.
And so it's I tell my husband now, jokingly, I don't know if you do this as a wife, but I'll bait and see how he responds, joking, hey, I really think that we're supposed to have another baby, a little girl. You look so cute with a little girl. And he's looks at me what the hell did you say? But I think he really wants to too. He just figured that he partnered with his wife and making sure that her health was good and all the things. It's interesting. That's a big topic in my house right now.
Well, maybe go have him get it reversed and see what happens.
Yeah.
If you're ready, then you'll get pregnant.
Right. But it just goes back to say that on this specific topic, I didn't do my research. I just listened to what they said because, that was a trigger and a fear for me. And then I was struggling with the postpartum part. And I disqualified myself and made a decision by disqualifying myself without research.
Well, when did you become more health conscious? Was it after your son or before that?
No, I owned the gym and everything before that. I would say that I've struggled maybe emotionally, ups and downs or feeling really low lows since my mom died. So one thing that I understood was alcohol, for instance, it would affect me drastically different than prior to her dying. And I actually took out, this is old school, the yellow pages and flipped through and started interviewing Buddhas, any kind of pastor, preacher, anybody that had information on our soul and our spirit, because what I felt like was happening was like a transition inside of me that I couldn't explain. Like I would have a glass of wine and I would just black out, lights out. Where like people that are super close to me, like my best friend, would be like, oh my gosh, Jessica, it was just like you just wanted to go to bed. And I didn't know if that was grief inside me that was making me respond different. I didn't know. And I think that the thing that it comes back to for me personally is there was a spiritual awakening that was happening during that time where I say now, and it still happens in seasons now, where my soul hadn't caught up to my body. I was, always 100 feet in front of myself. And something like that happens, to me, even though she had cancer and we'd seen her and lived through it, for one time, and then she got it again. We never knew she was dying. She never told us that. So when she had a stroke, it was like overnight that she died. That's how it felt. So I feel like you just add all these things up. So that's when I got really into health and fitness, because I thought up to that point I was kind of doing what 20-year-olds did, going to the bars and doing the things. And it really, really scared me, to be honest with you. But what scared me at that time wasn't dying of cancer. It was my mental health. I thought something was wrong with me. And then I started to kind of hyper-focus on the fact that I was different. What I could do prior to her dying was different than what I could do after. And I didn't have the answer for why. And so my journey, like your journey in health, was more on that spiritual, what is happening inside of me that because I was resisting it. No, I can have a drink. I can go out and have where time after time after time again, I could not do that. It was not good for me, and it definitely wasn't good mentally for me. And so through that process, I believe that I went through a spiritual awakening, and I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, and that compounded with doctors saying that that's just not healthy to do, and it increases my chances, made it very easy for me to just say, I'm good not doing that. I don't feel like I'm my best self. I don't feel like I make good decisions when I do that.
Who does?
Right? It's never having a glass of wine or getting drunk never did anything to improve my life. And that's really what it came down to. And I was in a pivotal time in my life where I needed to figure out resources in order to grow out of where I was at, because where I was at was killing me spiritually and mentally and physically. And so that's kind of my health and wellness. So the gym was built off of body, mind, and spirit approach, where I'm like the OG, like lift weights. That's what our body needs. Like movement of our body is important. Don't put me on a machine that you're using air against your body. You know what I mean? We get older and women hit their hips, break them. They never heal because they're thin and they don't have the muscle on. Like all that stuff through research, I'm like, I just want to stay strong. Because when you see somebody that dies of cancer, in my situation, she was so weak. Everything hurt. There was holes in her skin. Her eyelashes were gone. Her nails were gone. It was like anything. Her boobs were gone.
That was from the chemo, right?
Yeah. Where like the second round, she just stopped doing all of that stuff and just wanted to die with dignity. And then she had this stroke, and the cancer had moved to her brain. And so it was very hard for me at 27 to digest that, though, to be like, wait, what'd you say? And in that situation, she didn't have a will done. She never completed it. And so, I was left to make all of those medical decisions, estate decisions. It was awful. And so I don't think that the human mind and spirit, or I couldn't in that situation, even though the doctor was like, she's not going to make it. Like she was on, she was in a coma when I got to her. I was like, she gets out of everything. I couldn't comprehend that he was like, no, she's living because a machine is helping her live. And my mom hated hospitals. By the third day of like hearing that, I knew that like taking her off life support was it. It was like you said, it's like she does not want to be in a hospital dying. You know what I mean? She does not want to be stuck in here. I got her a ride up home, and she died the first night in hospice with all of our family around her. So for me, it's been a combination of what I put in my body, but not just food, like mentally, the conversations I'm having, the people I'm surrounded by, how I feel when I walk into a room. I don't know, it can sound kind of weird, to be honest with you, but it's how I am. And it's weird because I have businesses that work with the public. So I feel it all and I see it all, but I don't ever approach anything from a judgmental standpoint. Like I have plenty of friends that like to drink frequently, and that's fine. They didn't have the journey that I had that made me get to a place where I made a decision that I made for myself that I felt was responsible for me, So I don't look at it like that, but it's interesting because people might think that you judge that, right? oh, they're judging me or that. Because I notice we don't get invited to things if it's like Napa. I'm like, just because I don't drink doesn't mean I don't want to go and hang out with friends in Napa.
Well, I'm a little opposite. So it is ironic and funny that I'm drinking a glass right now, but that was just to take the nerves off because sometimes I get a little nervous when speaking. I'm really not a big drinker. I could, if someone said, hey, don't drink ever again, I would say, okay. It's really not that big of a deal. But I don't like to put myself in situations where everyone else is getting drunk. It's just not as fun for me. So I think if all my friends were going to go on a wine tasting trip to Napa, I would say for me, I wouldn't want to go because I know they're going to get drunk.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I grew up with a father that drank a lot, where when people are kind of drunk, I don't like being around it. It's not as fun.
Yeah.
Because they're acting like they're 8 years old and crazy and...
Well, and I'm about connection too. Like I care about relationships. I'm a relational person. I love to be in nature. I love quiet, So if you come to my home, there's a television downstairs that's only used on Fridays for movie night. My family would probably tell you I'm terrible at sitting through a movie. I just don't feel like it's best use of my time. But I do it because traditions matter. My son's getting older, so the movies he wants to watch, I just cannot sit through the movie. Where I'd rather be upstairs writing or reading, processing or being in a creative state. Researching. I'm very sensitive to noise. I always have worship music playing. When I go, it's funny because we were just in Scottsdale staying with family. We have never stayed with them before, and the TV was on nonstop. And it's like, wow. Like they love sports, so it's like 3, and it's like 3 different games. And I could not stay in the house. So, thank God, I have morning routines. I like to get up, get outside, get my workout in. So, it wasn't hard to do that, but I was texting my husband, we need to get up and get out of the house. I felt like I was going crazy. And it was just one of those times where I had to slow down because I was staying somewhere else. I was out of the routine of being able to stay busy with my life. And I just thought, people live like this. This is normal, And what's happening is I'm raising a son that's very sensitive to that as well, which is great. But there's that fine line that we live in technology now. He has to know how these things work. They teach them on computers for several hours a day. Mm-hmm. But he comes home and I'm like, not in our house, not on a device. The biggest thing that I've made in this last year with the world being as crazy, because he was going to a business school during COVID, so he didn't really know COVID happened, really. He was young, is I got him a Apple Watch so I could track him, because I was like, what if school shooting and, all these things. And so he has that on his arm, and he thinks it's kind of cool because he can get a text from me or whatever. And I just told him why I got it. It's so I can know that you're safe, and if somebody was to take you, I could find you and all those things, So it's not even for the use of being entertained or distracted or advice. It's literally as a mother in a world that's vastly changing, and he's not with me 24 hours a day. So it's very interesting just having to navigate this world that I don't want to step into. And one of Brandon and mine's biggest fights, literally go to therapy weekly, is the fact that I will not put my calendar in my phone and share a calendar with him because I don't want to be on a device. I have to manage a portion of the business through this device: email, text, social media is a place that business lives on. I've now had somebody that I've sourced out for that, but I don't want to choose to run my entire life off a calendar on this thing and constantly being dinged with notifications. I like to put it in a hard calendar. And if I don't get back to you, it's because I don't have that in front of me and I can't tell you what my calendar is. And I was trying to tell him, back in the day, we didn't respond like this. Mm-hmm. We processed. Every time I respond like this, I say yes to the wrong thing every time. And then I'm having to backtrack and probably going to end up canceling, rescheduling. You know what I mean? Instead of just being like, oh, sorry, I would really love to, but I'm not going to, or I can't. You know what I mean? I don't do that now because I literally I'm on the go all the time and I can't respond to a text that has anything to do with time or date. But we argue over that. He's like, when are you going to get up to the times? And quietly, sometimes I'm like, God, I'm just so old school. I need to get it together.
Why is he so concerned with that? Is he feeling like your method and system is not working?
He thinks it's not productive. And then also it's because our son plays 3 different sports, 3 different, you know what I mean? 7 days a week, we have to be somewhere, double days.
He wants that.
He wants to know, because he's also gone 3 days a week, right? Because he's at the firehouse. Mm-hmm. And so we just have a very, pass off situations sometimes. And for him, he would like me to input so that he can see all that, where I'll text him at the beginning of the week and be like, hey, this is what it is.
So he could take the time and input it.
Totally. And then if I miss something, he's like, well, if we had a shared calendar, and I'm like, I promise you, this thing dings and I never even look at it. If I was to go through here and show you, like, they're all there, but I don't look at those things. And I have to coordinate, like if it's Winks Fitness or Smithville or podcast or sisterhood, whatever world I live in with you or ecosystem, it's on there, because if I see that, I will answer. But if I don't see it and it's just a random number, you're 100% not going to hear back from me. I'm not even touching it. I don't feel the need. I don't feel the sense of urgency. You know what I mean? And I feel like at this point in my life, and when you become a mom and you're intentionally there, like, I just don't have the exchange of time and energy for that. I'm good. I feel like I have to dabble online with social media, and it will pull you in. I don't care how disciplined you are, how much you don't like it. You get pulled in. Something will pop up, and I'll be like, oh, there's Doris, and she's up there, and I want to see in the fire. And you know what I mean? And like 40 minutes later, I've like gone through, the little reels that you stay, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you did this, that, and then I'm tagging soul sisters in your stuff. You know what I mean? It's not like it's bad, but it's just like, oh my gosh, I've just lost that hour. Like that, I'm normal. I do those things. I'm not saying I'm so disciplined. I lose time in that. And I don't have all the disciplines. I might be good the majority of the time, but at the end of the day, when you do have a family and kids and you're a working mom, like you really don't have that much time to just be wasting,
True.
So yeah, it's the struggle. I don't know. I'm going to win this war. I'm not going to convert over. I just don't even feel the urge to. So.
Well, as long as you're diligent and looking at your planner. I'm a planner person too. I've had a planner since 1995, since I was 15 years old. I've kept a yearly planner, and I not only write what I'm supposed to do in the actual, the month at a glance, but there'll be pages where you can write more detail. I write what I do that day.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a diary.
Yes. That's how I feel about mine too. All the notes, all the dates. I can go back and look at it. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, people that slow down and live old school, I call it. There's something intriguing about it, and the fact that people can slow down in such a fast-paced world. It's hard. It's such intentionality every single day, choosing to do that, because I feel like as soon as you wake up and even touch this thing, it's like you're off and running, whether you want to be or not.
Well, and that's kind of how it is with having a farm with animals. You see the way the animals live, and sometimes you can think it's Groundhog Day, but at the same time, it's just so simple, and they need food and water, and they're happy.
Yeah.
And as long as you provide those things, and there's actually a lot of joy just being with them and hanging out with them and petting them and watching them do what they do in their element. So that kind of grounds me every day, when I'm up there. So like I said, my schedule, now that I have a new caretaker, I didn't have a caretaker for, I think 8 months. And so for the past 8 months, I've pretty much been ranching it full time. And my husband has to come up and see me. Maybe I can come down for just 24 hours, but animals need to be fed at least once a day.
Yeah.
And so now I have a new caretaker, and I'm able to come down here to Newcastle, or Loomis, a couple days a week, do my accounting, because I still have some accounting clients. But yeah, I love it down here. When I'm at the ranch, I'm like, oh, I miss being down there, and having 2 sets of washers and dryers, being on grid, and being able to go out to dinner. But if I'm away for too long, I just want to go back to the mountains and be in the peace and quiet and just the vastness.
Yeah.
I showed you the picture from earlier, just seeing those rolling mountains and hills, and
yeah.
I mean, it's truly quiet. All you hear are the wind chimes and the wind and the occasional baa from the goats or sheep.
I love that. The simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that. So one thing that we're doing with the Sisterhood Collective, we have a gathering, which I hope you can come to. I'll follow up with that this Friday. But we're actually, now that we have this space, is like doing monthly meetups where we can continue to grow the community, learn about like farming and just getting resources from so many incredible women in this area that do incredible things that are such a resource for one another. But I would love to have you do one of our monthly meetups and just really like digging in depth even more to even what we've talked about our food source and the practical things that we can do for the people that don't have property on just the little things that we can do. Because I feel like if we don't feel like we can do it all, we just don't do anything. And we're not making any improvements to our food and how we're getting it and the importance of it. The education's not there. People don't slow down enough.
Well, and I think that I'll have great suggestions because everyone's at a different place in their journey, and based on where they live and their housing situation and land, they have different things they could possibly do. So one thing I suggest for everyone who isn't ready to grow something, you'll always find a local CSA. It's called Community Supported Agriculture. Many farms have it, and you search to join one, and it's like it's a club, a delivery or a pickup club. So for a CSA, you pay weekly for their box. You can usually get a whole or a half, and it's whatever's in season that they grow. And CSAs typically will have a wide variety of what they grow for whatever's in season to that area. So you can actually skip boxes. So you don't pay a membership to be on there. You just pay for the box. So maybe it'll be like $25 for a box that week. And if you can sometimes say, well, I don't like leeks or I don't like tomatoes, and you can be a little more picky, or they'll have add-ons. Oh, we also have fresh eggs available or fresh sourdough bread. So that's one place to start. People can be signing up, and then you get to know your farmer. And usually that CSA, that farm, will have weekly bulletins and updates on what's going on the farm. And you can either pick up at drop points or go to the farm and pick up. So that's one way to get fruits and vegetables. Another way is partnering with maybe a few friends if you don't have a lot of freezer space, and finding a local rancher where you can actually go in and get a quarter of a cow.
Yeah.
And I can explain how that works, like how many pounds of meat do you get and what are your cuts and how to pick you have to work with the butcher and get to pick your cuts, all that kind of stuff. But those are two places that people can start where they can go visit the farm to see the animals. I think that's the most important, is people who don't grow anything, and especially for those moms out there that are door dashing, to get connected to food more. And if you're not ready to do it, have an outlet where you can go and meet the people that are producing your food and go to that farm.
Yeah.
That's step one. This Friday, actually, I'm available, and I'd love to come to this.
Oh my gosh, yes, because I would love to get you more into this community. And I think that having you come and then having you do like a breakout session, a monthly meetup. But I wasn't kidding, even in there with Lauren, like it would be so cool to even offer where we do something up there and a retreat kind of thing, and we get to go off the grid and actually see what it's like and pay to have this experience up there and offer that to the community. I think people want that right now. I hear it in conversation.
And depending on, so at the ranch, I do a lot of different courses as well. So depending on the group of girls we get up, maybe the first time it's just coming up, getting acquainted with the land, because that's already an experience in itself. But I do chicken butchering courses, lamb butchering courses, firearm instructions on beginning firearms, different herbal, like right now we're coming into walnut harvest season. So I'm making black walnut tinctures, which I'm not sure if you know are great for anti-parasitic, antiviral. So I can make a black walnut tincture with alcohol, which you take internally for parasite cleanse, or you mix the black walnut hulls with olive oil, and it works great as an antifungal. Wow. My husband got ringworm, and I put it on. Within a couple days, it started going away, and it was gone, any sort of fungal. But anyway, just ideas of, after whoever's interested in coming up, we can actually do a weekend different courses, and
I would love to
jam-packed weekend.
Yes, I would love to put that together, and I mean we could bring yoga and fitness up there and truly make it an experience. And I really do. I think people are wanting that. They just don't know where to go, and I feel like people are so busy that they just don't do the time to research it. So I'm really excited for us to connect and create some cool stuff together to offer this community. I thank you so much for your time today. If people want to find you, can you give them how they can find you and connect with you?
Anyone's on Instagram, my main handle is Survival Chick. The farm handle is Kings Hill Ranch. I have another kind of the sexy girls doing some off-grid stuff, and that one's called Girls Gone Off-Grid. Those are all on Instagram. And if someone does an Instagram, I have the website, kingshillranch.com. And there's an email box if someone wants to reach out to me and ask me questions or see what upcoming classes we have.
Awesome. So stay tuned, ladies. We will definitely do a follow-up. I'd love to have a follow-up conversation just based on feedback from you and doing these breakout sessions and also monthly meetups to where we'll have Doris more involved in this community and creating things that you guys truly want to learn about and get more connected in. So stay tuned for some upcoming events.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.